And we continue here on the Joey Jones Show on UTV 44, presented by Mugshots Grill and Bar on Airport Boulevard. Pat Greenwood and the head coach Joey Jones, and we talked about that Kent State offense. Let's take a look at their defense, and they're giving up 30 points a game statistically. But again, you look at the teams we played, and we referenced that before. Penn State and LSU, and the best teams in their conference, including nationally ranked Northern Illinois. So this is not a team that defensively can't do anything, is it?
When you look at them, they're very sound defensively. They understand what they're doing. A lot of movement up front. Got good players up front. Like we mentioned, the next kid, number 5, he's a great player. They're just very sound in what they do, and they're gonna challenge you to run. They pride themselves on stopping the run. They're tough inside, so we're gonna have to run the football some to be able to have success today.
And you mentioned Roosevelt Nix. You know, I looked through the stats as I was preparing for this show. I said, man, that guy's still there. I mean, he's, you know, we saw him a couple of years ago, and he's still just, you know, just as good as ever.
I remember watching him against Alabama a couple of years ago. We played him that exact same year, and he was giving them fits. And so, you know, if you give an Alabama's offensive line fits, you're pretty good.
So what type of alignment do they run?
You know, they're just a 4-3 type team.
Okay.
You know, they slant a lot. They move. They always have a guy on the edge, and they're trying to get a lot of movement up front. And they play the sound coverage, and so it's pretty much the same scheme as it was a couple of years ago, just with a little few twists.
And offensively, what can we do today? I mean, do we do anything different? I know there's always tweaks and wrinkles here and there, but you know, our offense seems to be rolling pretty well.
You know, I think that's the biggest thing we've decided to do is not just get too far away from what we do. And I think you're always going to add a wrinkle. You're always going to change a formation and things like that. But we're not going to get too far away from what we do.
Well, always happy to visit with an assistant coach as well, and a guy that doesn't mind putting some points on the board. That's quarterbacks coach Brian Benson. Coach, thanks for taking the time today. And so many things stand out about our offense. Specifically, the biggest thing to me is a guy like Ross Matheny, who was good last year, but has just grown leaps and bounds this year. How has that happened? Talk about his progression.
I think a lot of it's just experience. You know, anytime you have a quarterback, first year in the system and what he's doing, the second year, you know, he's going to be more familiar, he's going to be experienced, he's going to know what to expect and just get more comfortable with the offense.
Did you know that he was as good a runner as he has become this year?
Well, I think, you know, at Virginia, they didn't run him much. You know, they were pro-style offense, and he was in the under center a lot. And we always knew he was a good athlete, but I think you kind of go back to the same thing we just talked about a second ago. You know, we're running the same things offensively, and he's just gotten better at it. And, you know, he's fast, he's tough, and, you know, obviously he's a threat with his legs.
Well, that's the thing. You don't look at him and go, man, that guy's going to take off in the pocket. Next thing you know, he's 35, 40 yards down the field, right?
Right, that's right.
It's fun to watch. Now, how much does confidence play, not only with him, but with the entire offense? I mean, you look at what we did against Troy, 600-something yards. You build that confidence, and it seems like we've been building that all year long.
I think that right now, offensively, we're very confident. I think both quarterbacks are confident. I think the offensive line's playing well. The running backs are playing well. And the receivers are playing well, tight ends. So it's kind of all starting to come together, and we've just got to continually get better.
And you talk about both quarterbacks who spend a lot of time on Ross, but a guy like Brandon, what kind of qualities does he bring to the field? Because he's different enough from Ross, but at the same time, when we put him in, typically we're not missing a beat.
Right. I think both of them can go out, you know, at the same time, obviously, whoever we're playing and execute what we're trying to do offensively.
Yeah,
I think, you know, Brandon he can do the run game, he can do the passing game, and he makes good decisions.
And how have you seen his confidence and his progression from day one to now?
I think it's obviously grown a lot. I think he's a very confident kid. He is the more experience and the more reps, the more experience he gets in the games, I think it just grows even more. And
Coach, how similar do you guys think? Because I know you're both offensive guys, and we watched this guy at Spanish Fort, didn't mind putting up the points there. I mean, you know, this is the type of guy you want on your offensive staff, isn't it?
That's right. And one thing that Coach Vince has done a great job of is getting the quarterbacks to understand what to do on all their reads. And I think that's vitally important. It's not about the scheme so much, and we can draw up plays that look great on the board. But if a quarterback doesn't know where to go with the ball, every coverage that comes up, then he's not going to be successful. And I think he's done a great job of explaining that to them, and they understand it in a simple way. And I think that's why we've gotten so much better.
When you talk about developing quarterbacks, and that, you know, whether it's Ross developing and developing Brandon or whoever it may be in that mix, how do you strike that balance between getting the guy some game experience, but also getting him some reps in practice versus you know, scrimmages, whatever it may be? How do you bring quarterbacks along?
Well, I think obviously the things that you're trying to do offensively, you've got to get them as many reps throughout the week in practice, and then the film sessions is equally important. You know, showing them the looks that you're going to see in the film sessions, and then getting them reps at it throughout practice, and then just consistently going over it and reps mentally and physically out on the field.
How are those guys in the film room? Do they like getting in there?
They really do. You know, believe it or not, when we're, as an offensive staff, when we're in there watching film on our opponent or practice, a lot of times you'll see Ross and Brandon and even Trey in there studying the film of our opponent or the practice film from that day by themselves. So they take a lot of pride in being prepared themselves.
And you mentioned Trey. I was going to get to him as well because, you know, again, a different dynamic when you bring Trey in the ball game. And how does he contribute to the mix of what we've got at the quarterback position?
Well, excuse me. You know, your third string quarterback, believe it or not, a lot of times you don't think about him and you know, being prepared, but Trey's very prepared. Trey knows what he's doing. He knows the progressions. He knows the reads. He takes pride in being ready if he's called upon, no matter what the circumstance is. And, you know, Trey does a great job. You know, I've been really, really pleased with his progress from last year to this year also.
And what kind of adjustments does the offense have to make when a new quarterback comes in, if any?
You know, really, I don't think there are any. I think we can do what we do with all the guys.
Well, and that's got to be key because, you know, if you want to plug in Brandon for a series or you want to put Brandon here or you want to put Trey here, the offense doesn't seem to flinch, and that's where you want it, right?
Absolutely. You want to be able to do what you do, whichever quarterback's in. And I think early in the season, maybe guys thought that Brandon was the running quarterback because he is extremely fast, but Ross can run also. But when Brandon comes in the game, we don't call plays different. It's all the same. Our philosophy doesn't change.
If you would you throw it 60, 70 times a game?
No, you got to be balanced.
Right.
You got to be balanced, and Coach Jones really believes in running the football. And the thing about it, you have to be balanced, I believe. And I think that's what we've done a good job of offensively, throwing the ball. You know, we're throwing it average around 30, 35 times a game, and then we're running it 30, 35 times a game. So we've had good balance this year.
And lastly, we set the bar pretty high at Troy with 630 yards of offense. I know that makes you feel good. Now you got that bar, let's keep going, right? I mean,
absolutely. You know, obviously we want to go out and we want to execute every play. We don't want to turn the ball over, and we want to put points on the board. You know, at the end of the day, we want to score more than they got, period, no matter what the situation is.
All right, we beat Kent State today, right?
I hope so.
Okay, let's go get it. I appreciate it, Coach. All right, well, coming up, we'll take a look around the Sun Belt Conference, specifically a team, Georgia State, right there. They're still winless, but maybe a little better than at least I gave them credit for. We'll talk about them and talk about the schedule today when we get back on the Joey Jones Show on UTV 44.